The building slow down, and I think I scared my entire board because I can scream pretty loud and it's pretty bad.
Now you mentioned that you saw people on the road outside of the building. Explain that scene.
I saw there's maybe about 30 or 40 people. I mean, it's
survive that kind of smoke.
Trying to land. There's gotta be. Right there.
Yeah, it looks like a big chunk of it has just peeled away.
Right there.
Yeah, it looks like a big chunk of it has just peeled away.
That's a very haunting description that Bob Kerr just gave of that low-flying aircraft near the White House, and one can only wonder if that was something that ultimately ended up in the Pentagon.
We just saw a live picture of what seemed to be a portion of the building falling away from the World Trade Center. If we can re-rack that to about 20 seconds ago, you'll see something dramatic happening. And I don't know whether it's another explosion or a portion of the building falling away, but something major just happened at that building. Here we go to the tape.
The tape.
Watch what happens in the left-hand tower. I don't know if this is the correct tape. There, something there is about to happen, falling away right there.
Yeah, it looks like a big chunk of it has just peeled away.
That doesn't make sense.
Mysterious bright flashes were seen from the chopper that was dropping a line out above the South Tower moments before it became the first steel structure in history to collapse.
Capital evacuated. The Sears Tower in Chicago has been evacuated. There was no threat of an attack against the Sears Tower, but they're obviously going to quit while they're ahead. There. And all of this world...
Oh, wait. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. The building fell.
There's 2 World Trade Center, and that's where the second explosion occurred about 15 minutes later.
I can still see flames shooting out of both, so it's an incredible sight. Do you have, obviously they've told the planes to come down, so do you have any shots right now of it?
You know, we've got a shot looking up from the ground at the side of the tower there, but we're not looking at the actual crater on the side, but we can certainly see the smoke coming from the building. Have you had a sense over the past hour? Because from what I'm seeing, there's as much smoke as there was an hour ago. That they have not made much of a dent in this fire. I don't even know how much fire equipment they've been able to move up onto those.
Oh, it's just coming down, Pat. It is just coming down.
What the right
it's
side
exploding.
Of the building is ripping apart.
It is billowing. Pat, the debris is flying. I'm going to run.
Okay. All right. We hope that Kristen was.
In Washington, a terrorist alert because the Pentagon was hit by a plane, and there's a fire on the Washington Mall, and the LA has a tactical alert where they're beginning to evacuate buildings. And then there's also another decision by the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. No planes are going to be allowed to take off.
We just secured this video.
There's nothing we can do.
בדקות הבאות, בעוד המרחב האווירי של ארצות הברית וניו יורק במיוחד נסגר למטוסים, יהיה מסוק זה כלי הטייס היחיד באוויר מעל מרכז הסחר העולמי יחרב.
Holy crap! They knocked the whole freaking thing down!
New York's Mayor Rudy Giuliani. On what was to be an election day, the mayor not up for re-election because of term limits, but the election has been postponed.
Explosions rocked the Pentagon as well. Apparently, a hijacked plane crashed into the Pentagon.
You mentioned that you saw people on the road outside of the building. Explain that scene.
I saw there's maybe about 30 or 40 people covered in bandages and blood. It looks like a lot of them were on the floor of one of the exchanges.
We're not sure exactly what happened, but there was another explosion on the far side of one of the buildings from where we're standing. The reverberation and another explosion on the right-hand side.
I don't know. They always say there is always a witness for history. I guess that day we're chosen to be the witness.
The evacuation of the Marriott was now well underway, and amongst the stream of guests leaving the hotel, was Dennis Wooldridge and his father.
This was the first opportunity we had to see anything that had happened, so we turned around and saw the North Tower for the first time, and it was obvious that something very serious had happened. My reaction at that point was to go back to my original conclusion that, in fact, something terrorist-related had happened.
By now, holidaymaker Christine Sweeting had also made it out of the building with her daughter.
Everyone was sort of gazing up. Somebody said, "There's been a light plane go into the tower." Oh my God, and we looked up at it. I said to my daughter, I said, she had her camera, and I said, take a photo of it, 'cause you're never going to see, that again. We're never going to experience that again. And as she was sort of pointing it up to sort of snap the picture, at that point, the second plane come in.
This is the photograph Christine's daughter took.
And I'm thinking, my God, what's going on here? This is, what on earth is happening? This is something really bad.
This is the second photograph taken by Christine's daughter immediately after the plane had crashed into the South Tower. On the 10th floor, Dennis Wooldridge, the man who was writing a novel on a terrorist attack on New York, surveyed the street below.
What really got my attention was the reaction of the people on the street.
Outside, the morning rush hour was at a standstill. People were looking up at something the hotel guests couldn't see. The collapse of the North Tower raised the Marriott to the ground, but on the reinforced southern end of the building, a small section, about 3 stories high, was still standing. It was in this part of the hotel that 14 people survived.
One of the really interesting things about these 14 people who survived is that they were in the right place at the right time, miraculously, because they were able to make their way down and be in that very small zone of, again, what I call the shoebox, that survived both collapses. They were low enough that they were able to be inside the protective area of that shoebox. Kind of a miraculous zone.
As news about the disaster spread, fears for the safety of those caught up in the events was growing. At the Marriott, the phones didn't stop ringing, and Amy Ting did her best to deal with incoming calls.
I was answering all the phone calls that was coming in because a lot of people were calling in saying, I need to, transfer me to room, blah, 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 transfer me to room 9, something. And is everything okay? Is my husband okay?
We're on the line with another eyewitness. Sir, this is Bryant Gumbel in New York.
How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. You're Wendell?
Yes, I am.
Wendell, can you give me your last name?
Klein.
Wendell Klein. Tell me where you are, if you would.
Well, right now I'm back in the hotel. I'm in the hotel offices here, the front office.
You're in the, okay, where were you when I
was standing right in front of the hotel. I'm the doorman there. And
the hotel, which hotel?
Marriott World Trade Center.
Right across from the World Trade Center.
It's actually right in between them.
Right in between the World Trade Center.
Yes.
Tell us what you saw and what you heard.
Well, what I heard first, an explosion. And I just figured that it was a plane passing by. Then all of a sudden, stuff just started falling, like bricks and paper and everything. Then when it kind of stopped, I heard a guy screaming. And when I looked over, there was this guy that was on fire. So I just kind of ran over and I tried to put the fire out on him. And he was like screaming. And I just told him to roll. And he said he can't. And then another guy came over with his bag and kind of put the flames out on him. So right now, he's being taken care of. I just had everyone call the ambulance and stuff so it can help him out.
He caught fire as a result of the falling debris?
Yeah.
I hear alarms going off down there. What's happening?
That's our hotel alarm, and basically, I guess that went off automatically. They've evacuated everyone in the hotel and evacuated all employees.
They have evacuated the hotel?
Yes.
Immediately?
Yes.
At this moment, Ron Clifford was comforting the badly burned Jenny Ann in the hotel lobby.
She said to me, I'm going to die.
I'm going to die. And I said, no, you're not. We're going to help you through this. And she said, Sacred Heart of Jesus, help me. I said to her, you're obviously Catholic. She said, yes. So I said, look, while we're waiting, let's say a prayer. So we said the Lord's Prayer. And as I was finishing the Lord's Prayer, there was another extreme explosion.
Ron had no way of knowing that what he heard was a second plane hitting the South Tower, or that on that plane was his sister, Ruth, and her 4-year-old daughter, Juliana. They were flying to Disneyland in Los Angeles for a holiday.
In my mind, I wanted to get home for my daughter's birthday. My daughter was born 9/11/90. She was 11 that day.
Following month, Ron Clifford was in his car when he heard news of Jenny Ann, the woman he'd helped at the Marriott.
I was driving along the Long Island Expressway, and I found out that Jenny Ann on the radio. On the radio, I heard that Jenny Ann had died and given up the struggle after 40 days. I did visit her in the hospital. I brought my yellow tie to the hospital and laid it beside her.
We were just, amazed at how we survived, and then that we came out on time before the second one came down.
I was mad and upset. You're in some pretty lousy situations sometimes, and the only thing that gets you through it is the proverbial shit hits the fan.
That was the first time that I realized, just how bad this really was.
To cry out,
proverbial shit hits the
That
fan.
was the first time that I realized.
The guy next to you is gonna make up whatever slack.
Just
to cry
out. Proverbial shit hits the fan.
That was the first time that
You have to call my wife and let her know that I'm okay.
The near-death experience in the Marriott on 9/11 left Amy Ting in a state of shock for several weeks.
You have that memory, that horrifying memory of the building coming down on you, being blown away, embedded in your brain. So sometimes I would cry in the shower, just to cry out, just to make me feel better. But so I'm like, well, I need to be strong. I need to get on with my life. And that's how I said, hey, let me join the military. Let me become part of the medical group because I want to save people. I always wanted to save lives and help others. So I was like, I wish, hopefully I'll get into the medical field. And I was really, really glad that I got into the medical field and I assigned to 382nd Training Squadron.
Overcoming her fears and regaining her self-confidence, Amy was soon heralded as one of the heroes of 9/11. The aspiring actress who dreamt of fame was now courted by the American press and even George Bush, who turned her into a patriotic icon.
It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful world. It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful world.
name's Bob McIlvain. I'm from Orland, Pennsylvania. I lost my son. When I did this to the press, I wasn't able to get through it, but maybe the second time around. I lost my son at Merrill Lynch. Can't do it. It's not just because it's 9/11 now, it's just... Yeah, my name's Bob McIlvain. I'm from the Philadelphia area. My son happens every time. He was murdered on 9/11. Trust me, I'm stuck all around the world. I can't get through this part. Hi, thank you for having me. I'm not going to give it one of my talks as of yet. When I do talk, I just get a feel for the crowd and just whatever comes to mind for me, because it's a very passionate thing for me. So I think it's also very emotional. Here it goes again. I know, but it's amazing. You can't believe how many times I've talked. But it still comes down, my son was murdered.
Però la verità è che c'è questo signore che continua a chiedersi ma perché mio figlio è morto e non si è convinto di nulla. Mi pare. Ecco, che idea si è fatta? Quindi...
Okay, this is very difficult.
Questa è una cosa molto difficile per me.
Especially with the discussion, the way it has gone.
Soprattutto per come è andata la dinamica della discussione finora.
I want everybody to think, and this is difficult. Think of your son or daughter being murdered. Everyone think of it.
Voglio chiedervi di fare una cosa molto difficile. Pensate che cosa vuol dire avere il proprio figlio o la propria figlia uccisi.
It's not about racism. It's not about anti-Semitism.
Non c'entra qui il razzismo, non c'entra l'antisemitismo.
I want the truth.
Io voglio la verità.
I'd like to start by introducing Donna Marsh O'Connor. Donna is the mother of Vanessa Langer, who died in Tower 2 on the 93rd floor. She comes to us from New York, and please give her a warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is my motivation. George W. Bush says, God bless America. He already did. Blessed us over and over and over again. And on that day, it was men who cursed us, not God. My daughter was on the 93rd floor of Tower 2. And 5 minutes after the first plane hit, she was on the phone to the Park Avenue office of Regis Business International, where she worked in the Trade Center offices. 4 or 5 months pregnant, depending if you listen to the family myth or what the medical examiner told me when he looked at the fetal bones. She was at her desk telling the Park Avenue office that the Port Authority police and those in the building were told they were safe, that they should stay at their desks. She went to work that day in the glove compartment of her Ford Explorer. At that point in time, the most dangerous car in America. I lectured her about that. Was the positive pregnancy test kit. All she ever wanted was that child. All she ever wanted was the child who'd be walking with me 5 years old today. My daughter would have run, not to make her brothers the saddest human beings on the face of the planet,
she was out. Do you know how heroic it must have been to get out from the 93rd floor of Tower 2 when you were at your desk because you were told to stay there 5 minutes after the first plane hit?
And your
you
question?
trust George Bush? Because I don't trust him. He needs to go.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Because she was an absolutely stunning figure in life. And these pictures are two different sides of a multifaceted personality. She was every bit as gorgeous and fierce as this picture reveals, even especially if you're her mother.
You have no right to tell me time is running out. You have no right to tell me time is running out.
Dina Burnett will never forget that first phone call from her husband with the terrible news that his plane had been hijacked. He would call again and again, 4 times in all. She would tell him about the attacks in New York and Washington. He would tell her about the plans he was making with the other passengers. And then he was gone.
And I was still holding to the telephone. I held onto the telephone for 3 hours until the battery ran down.
The phone, Dina Burnett's last link to her husband, Tom, and his final words to her from aboard United Flight 93.
And he said, "We've got to do something."
The images from that day of smoldering wreckage in a Pennsylvania woodland and the knowledge of what her husband and the others did had propelled her this past year on a mission of her own. To find out what happened in those last few minutes in the cockpit, to understand why the plan that Tom and the others conceived ended the way it did.
And so I turned to the FBI agents and told them that I wanted to hear the cockpit voice recorder.
Dina was a leader in the effort to convince the FBI to allow the Flight 93 families to hear the tape. She and the others agreed they would not reveal publicly exactly what they'd heard. Over the past year, Dina Burnett and Tom's family have been called upon to accept all the accolades showered upon him. Dina says she is motivated now by a single overriding purpose:
to create a memory for our children so that they know the significance of their father's death.
Do you ever think about what Tom would think of what you were doing and how you've handled this past year?
I think a lot about that. I think in everything I do, I have 2 goals. First, to bring glory to God, and second, to bring honor to Tom's memory. And I think that I've done that. And I think that Tom would be very proud.
Just to cry out. That was the first time. You have to call my wife and let her know that I'm okay.
Look at me, we're down by law. You have no right to tell me time is running out.
И вновь в эфире специальный выпуск новостей на канале НТВ, в студии Петр Марченко. Мы продолжаем следить за событиями в Нью-Йорке. Буквально минуту назад там рухнуло одно из 2 зданий Всемирного торгового центра. Сейчас мы покажем то, что было снято операторами ведущих телекомпаний. Вы видите, что центр Нью-Йорка окутан дымом. Одного здания уже нет. Это произошло после теракта, который был совершен буквально час назад. Сейчас вот в прямом эфире вы видите эту картинку, что вот видно, как падает здание. Эта картинка была записана буквально несколько минут назад. Напомню, что час назад Нью-Йорк и Вашингтон, по некоторым сведениям, это был один из самолетов был Boeing 737, по другим Boeing 767. Первый самолет способен вмещать до 170 человек, второй до 300 человек одновременно. Второй до 300 человек одновременно. Второй до 300 человек одновременно.
All these systems compromised in the building. You may be getting an explosion from that. We do not know what has happened, but obviously something has happened there near the base of the building, setting off another round of major smoke.
What more can you tell us now?
Well, we know that the West Wing of the White House has been evacuated amid terrorist threats and in response to what's happened in other parts of Washington and in New York. In other parts of Washington and in New York. In other parts of Washington and in New York. The parts of the Pentagon unaffected. In other parts of Washington and in New York. In other parts of Washington and in New York. Parts of the Pentagon unaffected.
Purposefully into
See, the plane actually pierced the building.
There were several
and virtually came out the other side.
Hello?
Hi, Devin?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Jeff. I talked to you like a couple months ago about your video about 9/11.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah, sorry to bother you again. I was just wondering, I never got a chance to ask you, where exactly did you film that from?
One Penn Plaza.
Like you yourself, you're like a video animator or like digital video or
Motion
something?
graphics.
Like how hard do you think with your, in your professional opinion, would it be for them to have made fake videos? Not very hard at all, or?
No, it'd be totally easy. It would be, completely feasible in order to create those fake videos. I don't care who did it or how it was done. All I know is that it was a horrible tragedy,
Back sharply and smashed directly, perhaps purposely.
Whoa!
Just hit it.
Holy cow!
What happened?
Another plane just hit it.
Just hit it.
What? Another plane just hit it.
Oh my God, the other tower. Just ran into the other tower. We have an eyewitness who said it was a large plane that crashed first. And then as we were watching the live picture here in the studio, we saw a plane crash into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
No, I didn't see what caused it or if there was an impact. What caused it or if there was an impact. What caused it or if there was an impact. What caused it or if there was an impact.
Did you see like the CNN footage that has the same like perspective as your video did? Like
I did. That's my
T?
footage. They have my. The CNN was next door to where I worked at the time, and I gave them my footage. HBO also used my footage for a documentary.
Oh, so the video footage they played on CNN was your actual footage?
Some of it probably, yeah.
Like, what did they do? Did they buy it off you, or?
No, I gave it to them for free. I'm not gonna make money off of the tragedy of thousands of people dying.
Well, it is a grotesque sight to look at from about 30 blocks away from where we are.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that quick question about where you were when you had taken the footage.
Yeah, One Penn Plaza, 24th floor, a company called Wave Express.
Okay.
But, people are going to spin it however the way they want to spin it. People want to believe that it wasn't real. They're more than happy to go upon that theory.
There is a large fire at the Pentagon. The Pentagon has been evacuated. And there's, you can see, perhaps the second tower, the front tower, the top portion of which is collapsing.
Okay, well, thanks for your time again, Devin. Sorry to bother you.
That's all right. You know, good luck with your pursuit. I fully support people to continue the investigation of this. I don't think we have heard the whole story, and I support people like you who are trying to get to the bottom of it. Definitely, you know, good luck with your pursuit.
Okay, well, you take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
You can now see there on that one side, well, you can see flames now coming actually out of two sides of the building, and I'm minimizing actually the number of openings that are on those two faces of the World Trade Center. There's multiple.
I am in Chelsea, and we are at 8th and 16th. We are the tallest building in the area, and my window faces south.
Two towers. Now, both towers have been hit by planes now. We are totally powerless in knowing what's going on here.
Two separate planes have hit the World Trade Center. We are not certain why that has happened, but it has happened.
Both towers have been hit by planes now. We are totally powerless in knowing what's going on here.
Fairbanks has been a cameraman for 16 years, but today he wasn't operating on experience. It was instinct.
We've had a couple of visitors today, young photographers, who were closer, I think, to the aftermath of this scene in the World Trade Towers, and a great many other people who tried to get there. And we asked Connie Chung to put together a piece on the photographers today who managed to get closer than most people to what was actually happening. Here's her report.
The extraordinary footage of an American Airlines jet slicing through the number 2 tower of the World Trade Center. That image was captured by 40-year-old freelance cameraman Evan Fairbanks, who had been working 2 blocks away.
I suddenly saw a white flash. I suddenly saw a white flash from the left side of the frame, and it lasted long enough for me to be able to identify it as a jet. And it lasted long enough for me to be able to identify it as a jet.
When you saw that plane hitting the Trade Center tower, could you actually fathom what you were viewing?
Not at all. It was very surreal. I felt like I was in another dimension, and we weren't even on the same planet.
When you saw that plane hitting
jet.
When you saw that plane hitting the Trade Center tower, could you actually fathom what you were viewing?
Not at all. It was very surreal. I felt like I was in another dimension, and we weren't even on the same planet. The image of that plane coming out of nowhere, coming into the frame, and disappearing into the south side of the tower, as if a floor had been hollowed out and it was a hangar that it was just landing in. I guess as the human stories start to emerge and we see more people and we hear more names, it'll become a lot more real to me. But right now, I feel like I'm still in the bubble of the day, and the whole experience is just kind of numbing.
Fairbanks has been a cameraman for 16 years, but today he wasn't operating on experience. It was instinct. A day filled with images we may never forget. This one stands out. The extraordinary footage of an American Airlines jet slicing through the number 2 tower of the World Trade Center.
We've seen these images in movies, and we know that it's all artificial. Hollywood makes it, and it's hard to put together that it's real this time.
And it was real, as everybody now knows.
Who's up? Who's up?
Yet another view, the plane hitting.
It's almost like the building swallowed the plane.
Yeah. Yes.
you see on television, the things you read in the newspaper, the things you see on television.
Shut the jet door. Holy fuck! Oh my God! Oh my God! Jesus Christ! Don't touch it. Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
The things you read in the newspaper, the things you see on television.
Oh my God!
Continental Airlines Flight 3407 went down 5 miles from the airport, and the death toll is 50, including all 49 souls on board and 1 on the ground.
The first terrifying moments of the crash just outside of Buffalo, captured and posted on YouTube.
Can somebody get some help for my daughter? She was hysterical.
A frantic search for the victims on the ground.
Oh my gosh, is there anybody in there? There's over my husband. Oh my.
Firefighters arrived to find a home engulfed in flames, with only the plane's tail sticking out. The plane suddenly banked sharply to the right, then nosedived into a neighborhood.
I was in our family room, and I heard a noise. Planes do go over our house, but this one just sounded really different. And I thought to myself, you know, if that's a plane, it's going to hit something. And next thing I knew, the ceiling was on me.
Extremely hot fire, one of the biggest fires that I have encountered in my 17 years.
I could see the wing of the plane, and Jill was over to the side, you know, crying, of course, hysterical.
State police and other emergency crew tell us there are parts of this wreckage that are still on fire. Police have not released the names of the victims, the people on the plane, but we do know that one of them was the widow of a 9/11 victim. Beverly Eckert is her name, and she was flying back here to go to a ceremony honoring a scholarship in her husband's name.
On board the aircraft, prominent victims' rights activist Beverly Eckert, who lost her husband in the 9/11 attacks in New York.
Stephen Wallace is a witness to the plane crash.
As Matt just mentioned, we have a breaking news story to tell you about. Apparently, a plane has just crashed into the World Trade Center.
Stephen Wallace is a witness to the plane crash. He joins us this morning. Stephen, you've spent 20 years as a paramedic, and you knew pretty quickly when you arrived on the scene that this was no longer a rescue situation.
Stephen, I mean, the fact that this plane came down and took only this one house in a very crowded neighborhood, that had to be surprising. I mean, this plane literally came in almost vertically.
Oh, that's true. When I heard the call and came in, I was expecting, I'm familiar with the area, I'm expecting 2, 3, 4 houses of angle right down, causing a crater. It wiped out one house, it damaged the garage, and set some cars on fire. but we've all seen the pictures of the Hudson River where the plane kind of glided across the river. If that had happened here, there would have been 6, 7 houses and a few businesses, and the catastrophe would have been a lot worse.
The weather may be at issue. What was the weather like at that point in time, Stephen?
Well, I shot 200 or 300 pictures, and the ironic thing is you could look at one picture, and the very next second, it's heavy snow with water, freezing rain, and then all of a sudden it's clear, the wind's really heavy, 20, 25 miles per hour, and then nothing. So it was a very variable weather situation going on.
Ice can distort that airflow, and if there is that distortion, the airplane can stall at a much higher speed and without warning being given to the pilots.
But the Bombardier-8 is a modern plane equipped with de-icing technology that the NTSB says was turned on. Investigators recovered that information off the black boxes already undergoing analysis in Washington.
They already got the black boxes yesterday. They were rapidly brought to New York.
Tim Morris, you understand were the first at the scene. When you saw that tail sticking up and saw the Continental logo, had you also assumed it was a small plane up to that point? What was your reaction when you realized this was an airliner?
Being the first one on location, it was actually very tough to tell that it was in fact an airplane because of the massive amounts of fire, of course, being fueled by the jet fuel itself. But I didn't in fact know it was, or nor could confirm that it was in fact a larger scale plane until I got about 180 degrees around the house. Then I did make contact with the wing of the plane, on the tail end of the plane, and then verified that it was a larger scale plane.
So were you sleeping? Were you napping?
No, I was just watching TV. Jill was watching TV.
And do you know what Doug was doing, or?
Well, I know he was going to get ready to go to bed, but he'll always before he'll go out of the family room if he's in there, and he'll say when he's going up, "Well, I'm going up," and I don't remember him saying that, but he was working on some of his sports stuff in the dining room, and my thought is that he was in there because I don't think it was long from the time he left that family room that this happened. It was only a few minutes, and my thought is that he was probably in there, and that is from the appearance of what's happened in the middle of the house.
I mean, what's going through your mind? I mean, can you believe? Does it seem surreal?
I mean,
It was 8:46 in the morning.
And then we heard a plane come over, and in Manhattan, you don't hear planes too often, especially loud ones.
Oh, shit!
We do have some breaking news that we want to bring you around, and we're going to go to a live picture from New York City. Apparently, a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center in New York, 8:52. We have limited information at this point. We don't know about injuries in the building or people on the ground, but obviously this has potential for being a major disaster here. Look at that. Look at that, look at that, look at that.
It's incredible pictures right there.
Right, and we should point out, of course, that the World Trade Center was the target of that bombing several years ago. So this is an area that has had its share of problems. We don't know yet whether this was an accident, some sort of planned incident. We just want to show you this picture here, and we are trying to get some information about exactly what happened. We don't know.
Now we're seeing some other pictures from lower Manhattan, the Wall Street area around the towers.
Right, and as you pointed out in the closer shot, you could see the flames there. Let's again, we're listening to see what this woman is saying here for a second.
Inside. It was inside. Because it looked out, everything was coming out. All the windows were coming out. All the
was on the sidewalk.
I didn't see anything.
Were there any people hurt, do you know?
Ran, and everyone in the path tree just ran. I don't know if anyone was hurt, but I assume they were because the windows were all blown out.
All right, thank you.
Dolly, you would have to assume a very, very terrible situation if that is the case, because I'm sure there were people.
So again, they were talking about the windows there of that building. We can see flames there, and we should point out right there are offices in that building. This is a very busy area there in New York City, many businesses. So this really is an incredible scene.
A very key observation there by the person who was making that speaking there to the local reporter, saying everything was coming out. Of course, obviously, at this stage of the game, we have described this as the possibility that some sort of aircraft crashing, and we see no evidence of it right there. And there is, of course, a lot of concern as to what may have happened, whether this could have been something natural, something planned, something criminal, or something accidental. We don't want to lead into any speculation right now, but no doubt those types of interviews will be coming in and very important to determine just what happened. But as you can also see there, Mark, relative to any sort of plane crash, it is a clear and looks like a pretty decent day. We're checking with Tom just a second, but Tom doesn't look like there's any obstruction at all in the air over there in New York.
Right, it certainly would not appear. It looks a little gray, but not fog shrouding the top of the building, so that apparently would not have been a factor there. We're also told there may be some sort of a pad on top of the building, but of course that would probably be a pad. Not a place where a plane.
At one point they used to, well actually, yeah. There may have been help.
Can you tell us?
Let's listen in from some local coverage from WNYW.
It's like a plane that I board on to go to, wow.
So this wasn't just a small Piper Cub or something that had gone the wrong way. And of course, we would, the weather, I take it, where you are is just about picture perfect.
Picture perfect, yes. It's very clear outside.
So there would be the suspicion then that anybody who would drive a plane smack into the middle of the World Trade Center would have done it on purpose.
It would seem that either that or they lost control, but I can't see something like that. I mean, it was like running into the building, it was coming low. You know, because if I were to see a plane that was going high, it's all right, but this was coming low. It's very visible.
All right, Rosa, thank you very much. Talking with eyewitness Rosa Cardona Rivera on the 14th floor of the building, very close to the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan. And once again, Dick Oliver was on the scene down at City Hall reporting to us. However, our transmitter is located on top of the World Trade Center building, so that apparently caused our picture from that remote to just go out on us. But once again, yes?
I was just saying, I can imagine what the people there must be going through, given what happened there a decade ago.
And of course, they would have to, under ordinary circumstances, have filed some sort of a flight plan. If it were a plane that, and it apparently, according to the lady we spoke to, eyewitness just a few moments ago, she did see a plane go in there.
We've got something coming across the wire here, James, but actually it's nothing more than what you've already been reporting. Witnesses report hearing a huge explosion.
Yeah, well, we're looking at, there's no doubt there was a huge explosion and fire, lots of black smoke coming from that building. Jim, 1 second, Dave, I'm told we have a witness named Jim on the phone. Eyewitness, Jim, are you there?
Yes.
Jim, what's your last name, Jim?
Last name Friedel.
Jim, tell us what you saw, if you would.
Well, I was looking out the window, and normally you'll see planes kind of flying low over the Hudson, but this is a large plane. It's something like a 727, and it was banking, and the only reason I kind of looked at it is because I thought it was rather low, banking very hard, and then it just drove right through the World Trade Center tower.
What's your vantage point, Jim?
I'm actually across the Hudson in Hoboken, but I have a clear view right at the World Trade Towers.
Now, it did seem to you that it was done on purpose?
You know, I don't know if I can say that, but it was a very odd type of turn. It was headed directly at the building. So whether that was on purpose or not, I can't tell. I don't know if he was trying to avoid or they were headed for it.
All right, Jim, thank you very much. Been talking to Jim Friedel, eyewitness who witnessed the crash from Hoboken. Thank you, Jim, very much for giving us what you saw and heard. Again, just a few minutes ago, apparently a large plane, according to that eyewitness, Jim Friedel, vanished point from Hoboken. That as you look at the picture from our chopper now arriving at the scene, Jim Friedel in Hoboken said it appeared to bank sharply and smash directly, perhaps purposely, into, oh my goodness, there's another one. Oh my goodness, there's another one.
Seems to be on purpose.
Oh my goodness, now it's obvious, I think, that there's a second plane just crashed into the World Trade Center. I think we have a terrorist act of proportions that we cannot begin to imagine at this juncture.
Oh my God!
My goodness. A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center. Obviously, suicide, terrorist attack on the World Trade Center. What we have been fearing for the longest time here apparently has come to pass. A disastrous terrorist attack on the World Trade Center. Both towers, planes smashing into each one. I understand we've reestablished contact with Dick Oliver. Dick is on the phone. Yeah, Dick.
Yes, just a moment ago, you know, another vehicle or some kind of aircraft crashed into the World Trade Center. This is no accident. This is no bomb from inside. This is, as you put it, a terrorist attack. There's no two ways about it.
Let's go now and check our other affiliate, WNYW. WNYW here, live coverage here of this amazing picture we're getting from Lower Manhattan. Two planes, one hitting each of the twin towers at the World Trade Center.
Very difficult to. They come by and they say, what happened? You just got to say something hit the building and then something hit both buildings.
We saw clearly, we didn't see the first one, but we saw clearly that a plane deliberately crashed into one of the upper floors of the World Trade Center. That was the second plane. So two planes crashed into the upper floors of each of the World Trade Center towers. And I understand now that Port Authority headquarters are in one of those buildings somewhere near that location.
Jim, I don't know whether we confirmed that this was an air crash or to be more specific. Some people said
We've been watching live coverage from our affiliate in New York City, WNYW New York, of this unimaginable, horrible situation.
But we might be open the possibility that this was a missile attack on these buildings.
Ali, I must say that we have an eyewitness who said it was a large plane that crashed first. And then as we were watching the live picture here in the studio, we saw a plane crash into...
At first, one plane crashed into a building, very unclear as to what happened. Was it an accident? And then at about 9:03, a second plane. Do we have that tape to roll showing the second plane hitting the second tower? Let's take a look. Showing the second plane hitting the second tower. The second tower. The second tower. Let's take a look.
There you see it. 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 And as witnesses have described, this seemed to be very deliberate. They described the first plane going into the first of the towers as having to bank. Having to bank and make a turn directly in. But Lark, as you look at that video, it appears the plane flew directly in.
Unmistakable, right. And here we're going to show it to you one more time. You can see this plane slamming into that second tower there. And it is important to note that the World Trade Center was this plane slamming into that second tower there. And it is important to note that the World Trade Center was the target of a terrorist attack some years ago, and the trials went on for years. Much contention and international.
Well, the building 7, there was no fire there whatsoever, but there was one truck putting water on the building, but it's collapsed completely.
We are in an abandoned skyscraper, and quite frankly, I don't even know where I'm at. I see a sign outside that just gives me a reference of Barclay Street. As you can see all around here, the windows have been blown completely out. And as we take a walk towards the front of the building here, you want to take a look outside. If you have never been to war, like I have never been to war, and this is what it looks like. We don't know what that building is. We don't know where this building is. We don't know what that building is. We don't know where this building is. But they're obviously on fire. Maybe there's a chance that they could collapse. I've been on this earth for 37 years. I've never been to a war. But I can only imagine that this is as close as I've ever come. More debris falling from a nearby building, the World Trade Center. We're at West Broadway and Barclay. Very difficult to breathe here, but look around. This must have been ground zero where this thing blew up. Car after car after car, buses completely obliterated and burned straight down to the steel.
You said you saw melted tour buses, melted cars?
The cars that were right down there, it was just unbelievable. They were twisted and melted into nothing. It must have been from when debris dropped.
Behind me, that gaping hole, that's where one of the two towers stood. It's not there. And as you can see above me, the fire in this adjacent building just continues to rage. To rage. To rage. Rage.
Number 7 is the kind of reddish-brown building that's towards the north end of the complex.
It's a surreal environment. It's almost impossible to describe. Again, except to make a war correlation. Whoever said somebody declared war on us, it certainly looks like it, doesn't it?
It certainly did. And then moments after Vince and his crew left the scene, this happened.
The collapse of World Trade Center number 7.
This is the only man who had the financial backing. This is the only man who had the infrastructure, where the World Wide Web, the tentacles really all over the world to be able to carry out this.
here on the corner of Leonard Street and West Broadway. We were just sitting here watching all the smoke pouring up from number 7. Number 7 is the kind of reddish-brown building that's towards the north end of the complex. And although we really couldn't see much damage on it, there was smoke pouring out of it here for hours. And folks just kind of standing around milling about it. And then I was watching. I just could tell from the reaction of the crowd what had happened because I'd heard it already before. The gas, the screams, people immediately turning and starting to run, even though we're probably a dozen blocks from the center itself. People starting to run away from the scene, and I turned in time to see what looked like a skyscraper implosion. It looked like it had been done by a demolition crew.
Collapse of World Trade Center number 7.
Okay, good. This once again happened only within the last few minutes. We saw one of those smaller buildings just fall to the ground. We had heard earlier that it was structurally unsafe, Now,
here we're going to show you a videotape of the collapse itself. Describe that. Now we go to videotape, the collapse of this building.
It's amazing.
Amazing, incredible, pick your word.
Building 7 ablaze at the moment and apparently getting ready to collapse.
I told you that sucker was gonna go.
That's coming here, isn't it?
What, the cloud?
Yeah, look at that.
Oh yeah.
Jim Friedel in Hoboken said it appeared to back sharply and smash.
Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
This is a large plane. It's something like a 727. This is a large plane. It's something like a 727. This is a large plane. It's something like a 727. This is a large plane. It's something like a 727. And it was banking. And the only reason I kind of looked at it is because I thought it was rather low. Banking very hard.
plane crashed into the tower number 2. That's the one to the left, where the darker smoke is billowing out right now. We have reports, CNN has been told that one of the planes was an American Airlines 767 that had been hijacked.
All right, lads. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but there's no audio at the end of this. I don't know whether that is by design or whether it's just some audio failure. But I'd like to say thanks for tuning in. And it's at the end of the movie anyway, which was basically, you know, September Clues Addendum. So I'll say, you know, you can hear me, yeah. So I'll say, excuse me. I'll say thanks to Gub Scout, John Watson. Larry was in earlier on, Larry Stevens. And thanks for listening in, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And there was a few other people that popped in and out, but they didn't leave any message in the chat or whatever. So it kind of floated between 6 to 8 people listening or watching. So, and Frank, of course, announced us all per day. Have to have a chat again soon, Frank. And Teddy, of course. How could I forget? Thanks, man. So, yeah, it's time for me to shut this thing down. And, yeah, thanks again for tuning in. And sure, we'll catch up again another time soon. Let me just see how... Yeah, there's another couple of minutes of this. So... Come to your birthday party, man. I'm not quite yet. I won't be. You won't find me in Australia, but I'll talk to you on Skype or something and wish you a happy birthday in real time. But yeah, anyone listening to this, go check out Frank's website. He can put the link in there. I'm not going to say it over the air, but he's announced us all for day. And how to take care of your penis.com. I suppose that's an interesting way of putting it. So anyway, right, I'm gonna feck off. I don't think there's anything else here in this video that you're gonna learn. You know, you've seen it all before. So all right, good night, guys. I'm shutting her down.